Alright, so basic setup of the Rotolio ISO 4. First things first is to adjust the bottle platform heights, so you just get about a half a centimetre clearance between the bottle and the filling head, and that's on all 4 stations. Next thing that we need to do is make sure that you've got your air compressor hooked up accordingly. Air compressor should be set up at say 6 to 8 bar continuous air pressure. So out of the compressor into your air dryer, out of the air dryer coming into the bottle filler. This particular setup, we are assuming we are using compressed air to compress the isobaric tank and to maintain pressure, and also to maintain pressure in the bowl. So the most important factor is, if you are carbonating at say 1.5 bar, you need to make sure that your pressure tank is sitting at 1.5 bar. You also need to make sure that the isobaric tank inside the filler is also sitting at 1.5 bar. So it's vitally important that all the valves are actually kept shut before you start your process. Otherwise you're going to have leaks all over the place. So having said that, we can only assume that we got 1.5 bar saturation in the product. So the best way to actually prime the machine is to, first things first, make sure your air pressure, as it says there, needs to be constant at 6 bar. So that's basically air coming from your compressor. Next, we have set up a regulator which is sitting at just over 1.5 bar. For this point, we are actually using the compressor to pressurize the tank on the filler and the tank on the actual pressure vessel. So disregard all the tangles. So set up your air pressures. What we need to do next is prime the actual tank inside the filler. So the way we do that is, you've got your line open, machine is set to manual. We need to open the air intake to product. It's a 3-stage valve, so that is off. In the middle is when you're actually doing a CIP, and all the way down is basically running and pressurizing the bowl. So what we do, turn that all the way through. You could actually hear air making its way into the tank. And the way you would know that is also because the pressure gauge will start increasing on this side, and it should basically stop once it gets to 1.5 bar. The reason why you prime the tank is so when product moves into the tank, it doesn't start to foam and you don't lose your CO2 coming out of your product. So pressures are very important. Once you get to that point, we know that it's stabilized. Then what we do is we need to open your tank. In this case, your hose should be connected to the base, but in this case it doesn't really matter because we've also got a pressure valve here. The fact that the tank is pressurized and that tank is pressurized, the product should slowly make its way through. So we slowly open this. The only way it's going to make its way through is when we vent the tank. In order to vent the tank, is we gradually release this valve. And we set that to auto. So auto. Slowly open it. And what will happen, as it reduces pressure inside the tank, you'll notice product will make its way through the tank. The hose will make its way up and it will start filling the bowl. This will take some time depending on how long your product hose is. You can see water making its way up. and that should stop halfway through, or when it gets 3/4. Okay, so that's stopped. Okay, so basically the tank is primed. You should have no foam inside the tank because it's actually been introduced under pressure. So at this point, the bottles are set. All we need to do is raise the lever. That'll basically lift the bottles to its correct position and the door will shut. So, okay, that's down. You have your filling and degassing. Click filling. Product will make its way into the bottles. Once it reaches the fill height, and what you need to do is go through the degas process, wait a couple of seconds. What you will find is you will have a small squirt make its way through the degassing valve, so that'll just go straight to drain. Once you're at that point, you can simply lower the bottle platforms and your bottles are done. In theory, these should be lightly carbonated without foaming. In order to determine your fill heights, as you can see, that's too low. The actual height of that straw in the actual bottle determines your fill height. What actually happens is your product will raise up to the bottle until it hits that point. Once it hits that point, it stops the flow of oxygen or whatever you've purged the bottle with to make its way up. It automatically stops the flow, which comes up from the top here. It's a bit hard to see because your flow comes out through here. Hits the little deflector. Once it hits the deflector, it comes on the outside of the bottles and fills all the way down and up. Blocks the hole, it stops the flow. Once you see that, that's when you actually stop the filling and you go through the degas process.